Hello, I'm Mr. Pibbles, but you can call me Peter, and welcome back to our Planet Coaster 2 Challenge Park series here in Planet Coaster 2. And we've got a little bit soaked. Yes, welcome back to the park. Now in the last episode we built this, which is our little, log flume. I forgot the word for it there for a moment. Yes, we got this done, and I think it looks quite good. And in this episode, we're looking at getting just a little bit more done around it. So, without further ado, roll that time lapse. Yes, hello and welcome to the time lapse. It's always fun to come out here and just record a little bit of a time lapse. And it's always relaxing to come back, watch my footage, and record my own audio over the top as these sorts of commentary bits. And as I say, over my time here, I have been getting better at this whole commentary thing, so I can't complain too much. So as you can see in this, at the start of this, I am just putting in some fences around the queue for our log flume, which I regret to inform still does not have a name, because I couldn't think of anything. So if you can think of something, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see what I can come up with. But yes, it's just a matter of putting in these fences, and you can see that I'm carrying on with the fences in the same style of our HMS Victorious back up at the top, which I know technically isn't part of this area, but I'd like to think spiritually it is, because we are working on a pirate section of the park, which is quite fun. As I say, I think that's the one part that this park was really missing, was sort of themed areas and actually getting some semblance of theme in. And obviously here we are starting with some pirates, which is just a classic for these smaller family-owned parks, you know. Add in some water, maybe a bit of a palm tree or two. Job is a good one. And yeah, it is just quite fun to actually be working with a theme other than slightly run down, and you know, it's just nice to be able to get in here and play around with pieces from a theme from the base game, because I played around with pirate stuff in the base game quite a bit, and I haven't really had time to come back. First game, there we go. And I haven't really had time to come back and play around with it, so this is just me having that little bit of fun that I used to have. Now you can see me switching out the fences here, because we want to differentiate this from kind of the Victorious, so putting in this pirate rigging fence ultimately was the best decision I could have made, because it just looks good around this queue line, and yeah, it just again ties into the area so much better than the brown just slightly generic fence, which we're keeping around the rest of it, because the rigging doesn't necessarily look the most secure for around the rest of the trough, but for this little bit, I think this works. And now we're just getting in and doing a few more details around the station building for the log flume, which is we're back with these bamboo pillars, again all made completely brown, like the like the big hut we've got up at the top that you go through, which is always quite fun. You know, I had a good time building that in the last episode, and I'm happy to come back and just have a bit of a play around with what we've got and what we can do with it. And it is always a laugh to kind of try something new, and arguably this is me trying something new, because everything I've done with this game really and with the Spark so far is in the same style, and this is just branching that out and making something slightly different. But yeah, I'm just carrying on with my established kind of rule of adding in these roof slats and just trims along the top of the roof, because again, it just looks nice, and having something to cap off the end of the roof makes it look a lot nicer. I mean, I know if I was doing sort of a building with some peaked roofs, or, you know, that was triangular all the way around, I wouldn't have to deal with that, but I like having sort of an actual kind of peaked roof in one way, if that makes any sense. And now I'm just coming in here, adding some moss around. You know, it's supposed to look a little bit like stains or like little growths within this area, which I know makes it not necessarily look the most appealing, but that's kind of the point. And we're getting a new ride in this park, which is quite fun. I always like adding new rides, and and I thought it was high time to put another flat ride in. So we've got this. I believe it is called the Parallelogram, but how do we theme it up? Well, that's what you're going to find out in this episode. But of course it is in our piratey area, so it is themed to pirates and stuff, which is fun. Now you can see me here getting in the queue line and just struggling to try and get it in. I don't know why I had as much trouble with this as I did, but yeah. But you can see me here getting in the queue line and kind of working it into the path, which is what I like doing. As much as I like having a separate queue line, I always think it's quite fun when you kind of fix it into the ground itself and kind of into the actual path, because I feel like that makes it just a little bit more almost realistic to this sort of park. So yes, you can see me here just fixing the path around. I don't know why I had so much trouble with it, but I did, and I am embarrassed to admit that, but there we go. And getting it in, we are just changing some colours around, because I had a little bit of an idea that I wanted this to be like a pirate ship. But I didn't quite know how I wanted it to be like a pirate ship, and you will see the way that I take it through this episode. So we've gone for very much a brown and blue colour scheme, like the Victorious, over the other side, but, you know, it feels a little bit different here because, you know, it's a different ride system and it's a different ride type and all that, and once we get the theming in, you'll understand once we get over there and make it look good. So I start off by looking at possibly putting in this mythology ship stuff, which is quite fun. Obviously, I'm sad we don't necessarily have pirate ship versions of these, where, you know, you can modularly build a pirate ship. So I put them in with a little bit of a mast, and it doesn't look great, I don't think, which is where I switch to the shipwreck stuff. And again, this came from the base game, and I never thought I'd actually use it in this context, but I think it works, and it looks slightly silly now, but once we fully get it in and just make it work, I think it does look quite cool. So you can see me here just lining that up with the ride and kind of getting it all in. And again, I do toy around with having this kind of shipwreck hull up the middle, but I think it just takes away too much from kind of the experience of sitting in the ride and watching out from there. So I get rid of it, and instead I end up using some kind of smaller pieces from kind of the from sort of the shipwreck stuff. You see me adding in that ship wheel there, and I actually come back and I go, ooh, ship wheel, I know where I could fit them, and they go up there. And I like the way that these look around the ride itself. And then this is where I toy with getting these bits of driftwood in, which I ultimately do with the shipwreck stuff. And I think it's almost a way of kind of getting a bow for this ship in and getting the hull sort of in without actually having to deal with it being kind of weird and off or whatever. So yeah, you can see me getting it in here, and I know it looks a little bit sloppy at the moment, but once I've fully sorted it out, I think it looks quite good, and sort of the ride system and vehicle itself just sort of sits in the ship quite well, and obviously this shipwreck theme continues on throughout this ride, and ultimately I'm really happy with how it turns out. Because obviously, again, it still looks slightly goofy, but you can see that it's slowly taking shape with these kind of bits of plank down the bottom. And I know they don't necessarily line up or whatever with the shipwreck pieces themselves, but just getting this log in down here, I think, is the final thing that I needed to make this look at least a little bit nice. And it kind of just ties everything in. You can see me testing it here, and you can't tell me that this doesn't look slightly cool, which is quite fun. But yes, now we're moving on to kind of the base of the ride, and I'm trying to find what I want to put in to actually make this feel nice. And I started off by looking at that bell, but it's too big, so the smaller bell goes in, and it's perfect where it is. And then I toy around with these pirate flags, which are quite nice. They're lovely pieces. I wish we could put our own designs on them, but I won't complain too much, because where else am I going to use flags? But yeah, putting them in there, I think it just adds to the overall look of the outside of this ride. And again, I think it just looks good. So we're putting, again, a couple more bits around the outside, like this boatyard crane. I know this pops up everywhere throughout my park, but it's genuinely a really nice, useful piece. And we're just getting back onto the ride itself with this trim. I'm sticking along the top here. And you may be asking yourself, why am I putting that in? Well, it's just to make it feel a little bit more kind of tied in with everything, and to make it sit better, make the shipwreck sit better around the ride system itself. And we are back with our ever so lovely, dreaded pirate rigging fence. My absolute beloved for this part of the park. It is genuinely really nice. I absolutely love it. So getting the base off the ride there, which, you know, I like taking the bases off things because I like adding my own custom fences onto them. I think it just makes them look a lot nicer. And we are now here with the fence. Ooh, I do like this fence. It is a nice fence. But yes, it's just a matter of getting these in and getting them in a way that makes sense around the queue line. And then obviously I go back and I get these fences again, the Western painted fences, because they just fit around the ride so much better. Which is annoying, if I'm being honest. You know, I'd like to put more of the rigging fencing around, but this just looked a lot nicer and looks a lot more like it would keep people out than the other fence, so I can't complain too much. But yeah, getting all of these fences in down here is ultimately kind of a really nice way of tying everything in. And now I get to my favourite flat ride trick, which is rocks and boulders. I love putting a good rock and boulder around just the footprint of this to kind of tie things into areas. Like, you'll know I did it over at the slippery slope, and I'm doing it here as well. Just again to kind of theme this up without having to put too many, you know, impressive pieces around it. It's just a bunch of rocks, which I do think also kind of fits in with the shipwreck theme of this ride, which is quite fun, quite exciting, and again, I can't complain too much about it. But yeah, to be fair, that's one of the things I like about this game, is the variety of rocks and kind of ultimately the the variety you can achieve by scaling them and kind of making them look different and look new, but ultimately you're just using the same rock pieces. But yeah, just getting them in around sort of the footprint of this ride, and I think kind of it just looks nice in there, which is good. And obviously we also move on to putting some palm trees around. I start with these desert fans, but they are a little bit too kind of big, and we've used too much of them around the log flume, so I end up with these coconut palms, which I feel look a lot more sort of stereotypically piratey, and I think they, again, just tie this ride together and stop it from looking, too static, as it were. Just getting these bits of green in kind of stops it from being, a monotonous brown and blue or whatever, or like the grey of the rocks. Kind of it adds that little bit of green without having to put too many scenery pieces around here and there, which is fun. And you can see that I have put a name on this. It is the Shipwrecker. So at some point I will get a ride sign onto that, and I'll probably do that off camera with my ever so lovely art shapes. And it's actually a really fun process of doing that. What I do is I will go into my photo editing software, I'll mock up a ride sign, and then I'll bring it into the game onto one of the billboards, and I'll copy it out with art shapes, which is quite a fun process. And I just really enjoy it. But yes, you can see me here just getting it in, putting some benches down because, the area needs some benches. And I looked at it and I went, you know what else this needs? It needs something to sort of tie this little area together. And I know the area is going to expand. Like, I haven't recorded the next episode yet at the time of recording this audio, but I do have plans, and ultimately, this isn't going to end up being like a little area. There'll be a couple more bits around it, but this being sort of the main part of it, just needed something to tie it together. And so I go for a little fountain. I do like a little fountain, and this Orlock base just worked so well kind of in the middle of things, especially kind of taking out that circle in the middle, and it just fit perfectly in the middle. And then putting this little gunpowder fountain on top of it. It's not much, it's not big, it's not impressive, but ultimately it just adds to the area so much. And we're finally moving on to one of my favourite parts, which is adding sun protection into the queues. So here over the Shipwrecker, I'm adding in these pirate canopies. I really like these pieces. I know they're meant for picnics and picnic benches, but I do think they look quite nice over the top of this specific queue, and yeah, it just looks quite nice. Varying them out a little bit, spacing them out so that there is at least some adequate sun protection over the queue, and rotating them so they don't all look like the flags are facing the same way. But yeah, I do like the way that this looks ultimately, so I can't complain too much about this queue. And in a bit we'll move on to the log flume queue, where we'll do something similar to what we did with the queue for the HMS Victorious, in we're using these market canopy pieces, which again, I just feel like they are perfect for what I would need them to do, which in this case is providing a canopy over the queue. And yeah, you can just see me getting these in here, and it fits perfectly to where I wanted it to fit, which I can't complain too much about. And I know there's that other bit of queue up the end, which isn't under shade, but ultimately, you're looking at this ride, you might have, say, a 60-minute wait at capacity, or something like that. At least you'll know for the first, the first and last 15 minutes you'll be under shade. or at least let the first 50 minutes and the last 30 minutes you'll be under shade, which is perfect, because, you know, I've been to Blackpool Pleasure Beach, you know, I've said it multiple times throughout this series, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so, we've had a bit of an episode today where, you know, it's one of these episodes where it feels like you don't do much, but in reality we've done quite a bit. And as I say, we've added all of these fences in the queue line to our log flume, and we have added in a new flat ride, that being the Shipwrecker. And of course added the queue to that. So yeah, if you have enjoyed this episode, please give me a like, give me a comment, possibly even a subscribe if I am lucky enough, and I will see you in the next episode. Roll that outro!